So, I wanted to talk about something I'd seen pop up quite a bit on in the comment sections of the video that I did before, and that is casual players just feeling very much overlooked and overwhelmed and sort of not welcome in the finals. Although nobody used the term "not welcome" specifically, they're talking about like getting dumped on, having to be put into lobbies with sweaties, having no sort of outlet where they can just like relax and play a game. They felt like they always had to be on in this, like they have to be very competitive about it. And that's interesting because I feel like the overall sort of feel of the finals is actually quite casual. It's very Overwatch like or Team Fortress like to me, for the movement of it and the frenetic pace and the action and everything. And I guess I'll just start by saying I think that the finals definitely is trying to cater much more to competitive types. I have noticed that. Yeah, and I think that you see this sort of emphasis on esports coming up is definitely them catering to the competitive crowd, the way that they approach balancing, the way that they kind of approach most things except for the cosmetics in the game are very much tailored towards the competitive player, which I'm definitely a part of. So I've been very happy with that focus because I'm being catered to. But obviously, the majority of people out there aren't, super sweaty competitive people. The majority of people out there are casual, and I think the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because it ties very much into what I was talking about before, which is this sort of concern over player base. And the most successful games out there are very good at catering to a casual player base, right? I mean, one of the reasons why Call of Duty still exists after decades is the fact that it caters very well this whole time to a casual player base. I think that there's a bit of a meme of MLG pro hardcore gamer whatever when it comes to Call of Duty, but it's actually a very casual community, very casual game. Halo used to cater very much to the casual player base. 343 Studios they kind of just don't cater to anyone, but they think that they're catering to a more competitive player base, I believe, when they're making their games. I guess that's something that I've noticed as a trend in competitive, or at least, multiplayer online shooters in general. Whenever a studio sort of veers too deep into catering to the competitive crowd at the expense of the casual crowd, that the game sort of suffers. I think a perfect example of that is Overwatch. Overwatch definitely started dialing in more and more and more to catering to the competitive crowd, up until the point to where they've really alienated the majority of their player base, including the competitive players themselves. Right, their esports scene has sort of tanked. Owl League isn't really a thing. Oh, that L and Owl is for League, but the Overwatch League doesn't really exist anymore. You've got failing Overwatch 2 that doesn't really have a reason to exist, where they tried to go 5v5, tried to tune things more competitively, and there's definitely still people playing that game, probably more people playing it than the finals, to be fair, but it's still a shadow of its former self, right? And that's the game that was very much in tune with the casual player base, right? They had things like Reinhardt, Mercy, characters that you didn't have to be super amazing at aiming with to be able to play. They did a great job of tapping into that casual market at first, and over time sort of alienated it. And I feel like that's sort of something that's happened in the finals, except at an accelerated pace, interestingly. And I think that it's not nearly in as bad of a state, though, as Overwatch is. And I think that it could easily, pull back, right? How do we make casual sort of feel more at home in the finals? I guess that's the real question. Because they feel like they're being, put into lobbies with people who are way better than them. They feel compelled to try hard. They feel like they are locked into a very competitive experience, where they can't really relax, and to a point where they want to play something else just to take a break from the finals, right? So there are a couple of things I think they could be done pretty easily, and there's some things that I think would be a bit more difficult to do. People talk about new modes, new things to do, new content and stuff like that, and I understand Embark Studios is small, right? So when we move over to this sort of new discussion about, how many game modes there should be, what game modes should be added, when they should be added, the thing that I'm the most in favor of is trying to get something out like either custom servers, the way that you would see in Counter-Strike, or a sort of Forge-like editor, like the editor that you get in Halo, and just let players make their own modes. I mean, mod tools would be the best. God, if we could get mod tools for the finals, oh my God, that'd be fantastic. And then have an in-game browser where you could browse mods and play those. Jesus, that'd be amazing. But outsourcing, the creation of new modes to the players, it's a win-win for devs. People love doing that kind of stuff, and that helps a smaller team like Embark create more content for free, basically. You get to exploit your player base as free labor, and we gladly will do it. And when you look at, whenever you're talking about custom game modes or especially mod tools, you get great stuff out of them, right? Like the MOBA genre was made born out of a mod for Warcraft 3. The tower defense genre was born out of a mod for Warcraft 3. Counter-Strike, which is now one of the most popular esports in the world, was a mod for Half-Life 1 originally. So you get so much value out of having tools like this for a game. And I think that more so than trying to make, your own modes would pay off just huge dividends, right? It would pay off so much. And it would help casuals and competitive people alike. I like doing that. Everyone likes hopping in there and playing and, blowing off some steam in some wacky little game. If we're talking about how to really boost this game up, I think that's a great way to do it. And it's a great way to help casual players enjoy themselves, which at the end of the day is all a game is there for, right? Is to make sure that people are having a good time. And I think that when you look at the very core of the finals mechanically, that's kind of in its DNA, right? Is messing around, finding out what stuff that you can do, coming up with creative new solutions for things. And when you're talking about coming up with creative stuff, custom games and custom game modes really just flow into that sort of spirit, very nicely. A casual player base is very, very important for any game to succeed. And I think that catering to the casuals while not overtly squashing the competitive players is always the best way to design. I think that a game that does this fantastically is, I hate to say this, but Super Smash Brothers, right? Smash Brothers, or any Smash Brothers game, I guess I could say. Smash Brothers does not give a shit about competitive players, right? And, Nintendo actively seeks to, thwart their competitive scene, it seems like. But, so, obviously I'm not saying that, the finals should try and thwart a competitive scene for its players. As long as you just give players the ability to turn off all of the silly, goofy stuff the way that you've done in ranked tournament already, I think just cater to casual players. The job of a competitive player, and especially a pro player, is just to put up with the bullshit in the game and make it work, right? Find the victory. Bring home that dub. And if people love your game enough, they're going to do that. You don't need to design around being a competitive experience. Again, the most competitive games out there can be shit like Mario Bros, which was specifically designed to be a more casual fighting game that didn't revolve around super intricate combos that you saw, from these other fighting games that really simplified things down. And that has ended up being one of the biggest of the fighting games in a competitive, context. So designing for casual players doesn't necessarily mean creating something that a competitive or a professional player isn't going to enjoy. I think that getting sort of caught up in catering to professional players or competitive players is a wrong sort of approach to take. I would love to see a bit more wackiness and a bit more of the craziness that we had earlier on in the game come back. I think that a lot of that has been lost, right? Like nukes were annoying, but I think that just the creativity of being able to throw an explosive on something and chuck it at a wall and make that explode was awesome, and that's been sort of stripped from the game entirely. setups for how you're going to approach a site, it feels like are less varied now. I feel like when I first started playing, there was a lot more different ways that we could approach attacking a site, and now it's all much more similar. And while the dematerializer, I want to say that is an awesome ability, but it does kind of make it feel like, oh, well, why use C4 or something? You can just literally make the wall disappear and you can close it back up. It's a really creative, cool ability, but I almost wonder if it takes away from the creativity that could go on in the game. I would love to see moving forward a focus on giving tools to players to be as creative as possible. You know what I mean? With the way that they're playing the game. It's easier said than done. It's a big ask, but I think that would help a lot for both player bases in terms of competitive and casual players. Make the game, make it fun first. The esport will follow, no matter how casual you make it. Like I said, Smash Brothers is such a perfect example of that. And I think that it's an example that the finals really should try to strive to follow, more so than anything else. So yeah, this has been very rambly. Like I hadn't planned on doing a second video, but I saw so much sort of outpouring of support from the last one that it just made me want to sort of talk about, I guess, another issue that had been nagging me at the back of my mind, and I hadn't really been able to contextualize it until I saw people mentioning like this sort of feeling that casual players aren't welcome in this game. And I was like, oh yeah, you know what? This game has gotten a lot more sweaty. I think that balancing this game more towards casuals is going to help it, including for a competitive scene, including for esports. I think it will help it. I guess if we were going to summarize it, a sort of game mode creation system, either mod tools or something like Forge, and just a mindset of the development team moving forward to try and make casuals feel at home, and to balance things for casual play, and to really focus on making things feel just like fun and light in the game moving forward. And I think that would do sort of a world of wonder for a game like the finals. I think that's what it needs. And I think that, again, if you're worried about that, like harming any sort of competitive scene or making ranked feel miserable, I promise you it won't. Competitive players will have more fun too. It sounds weird, it sounds counterintuitive, but I've been in games that go either way, and competitive players have more fun in goofy games. We like to complain. We'll complain about shit like low grav and stuff like that. I fucking hate low grav, right? But at the end of the day, we keep coming back to the game. And that being said, I am glad that low grav is out of ranked. Please don't ever put that back in ranked, any of those fucking things. That was the best thing ever. Again, allow us to turn the goofy shit off for our little sweaty corner that we call ranked, but keep it on everywhere else. All right. I guess that's all I've got. Thanks for listening through this one. It was a lot less sort of succinct than the last video was. I hope it helps. That's all I'm really trying to do here. I don't think I'm going to build any kind of YouTube career or whatever. And I hope you have fun playing the finals. Goodbye.